Episode 29. I am joined as usual by Mr. Young TMV. What's your rapper name? Mr. Young TMV.
Okay.
Pretty good. I'm not totally sure what type of rap you do. I would prefer it if you were a grime artist because I think that'd be funny. We had this discussion the other day off stream where
Yes.
you were telling me about all of these underground UK rap artists that you're super into, and you know.
No, I unfortunately rap isn't really a genre I exposed myself too much.
You
Unlike
shouldn't be
you.
exposing yourself to anybody, honestly.
Look, I give the people what they want.
Yeah,
With
TV's chat can confirm that. Anyway, we are going to be doing a we're going to be doing a Shanghai playoffs preview episode today. Um,
yeah.
it's going to be great. We're going to be going over the group stage, which was very interesting. We had some. I mean, honestly, let's just start off right there. How hype were the games? Like, I know people were saying like, "Oh,
Games were good.
viewership's down," but the games have been really good.
Yeah, the games have been really good. I don't get the viewership doomers. Like, as soon as it's like some of the more clouded teams are like Masters, especially compared to Masters Madrid, right? Masters Madrid, arguably the best time like in the world that it could be. You
Yep,
got some of the most clouded teams that you could pick were there.
yep.
Like literally the stars aligned to make Masters Madrid high viewership. Generally the second tournament tends to be a little down anyway. And also it's in East Asia. Like
Yep.
of course it's down. Like what the fuck are you talking about? Although the China, but that's again because people aren't considering the Chinese viewership, which might be fucking massive. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. The crowd has been pretty hyped from what I can
Yeah,
tell. So that's very cool. I personally I love the walkout where the players come out and they're all like high fiving the
yeah,
fans.
that is
I
cool,
think
isn't it?
that's great. I think that's
Mm.
great. Before we get into the episode, we got to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's episode, Yaasa Play. They are the Acend partner that has provided us with height adjustable desks to allow you to go up and down depending on where you need the height of your desk. They are going to be partnering with us. TMV, slouching in your chair is not your desk going down, okay? You're the
I'm just
magic of
trying to show
cinema.
that.
The magic of cinema is not working out with that shot. So I would appreciate it if you would stop lying to the viewers. I'm going to continue on with the sponsorship plug. Yaasa Play is giving away a desk essential model. It's a great kind of like all around desk that has height adjustable. It's got memory functions where you can, lock in specific levels. It's got a collision sensor so you don't crush anything underneath your desk as you lower it. I've come very close to doing this a couple of times, and it's nice to have the motors be like, son, you can't go any lower right now. There's something underneath. It has a very stable frame that is made with steel and aluminum, and the height adjustable desk has two very powerful but silent motors to make sure that you can get it to the right level without, adding a bunch of extra noise to your stream or whatever else you might be doing. So gonna go ahead and throw the link in chat for the desk. It'll be pinned there as well, and make sure you go enter the giveaways going on for another week or so. And there's a bunch of different ways to enter. So check out the sponsor, support the podcast, support the team. And with that being said, get into the episode. What's our first topic?
First topic is rosters. Before we get into Shanghai, there's been actually, I mean, really surprisingly, like if you add in some of the stuff we were talking about last week as well, like there's been a lot of
Hit
like
the
a lot
panic
more.
button. Everybody's hitting the panic
Yeah,
button.
everyone like, oh my god, we need to make champs. Oh my god, everyone panic. Which maybe obviously the format last year didn't really, because obviously there wasn't like a full stage. It was just LCQ, right? So you're only playing a couple of games, so maybe that's less of an incentive to panic. Whereas you need to be more consistent now. You need to be kind of making sure you're getting the right team. You can't fluke your way there, really. We'll see. But a lot of roster news going on. Obviously, the big one is what we're going to start with, which is NRG. So NRG have released Marved. They bench team and won, and it is almost confirmed. I don't think they haven't officially confirmed it, but it's pretty much confirmed. The FNS and SOM Although I'm pretty sure FNS said he wasn't going to come back to play this year and was, we're going to wait for next year. But he's back. And so that means that we're going to get an NRG roster that's FNS, Sam, Crashy's Victor, and Ethan. Your initial thoughts for NRG? Is this a good move? Is this, not going to be enough for, to make champs? What do you think?
So first of all, I called the Sam comeback.
We did call, yeah.
Assuming that this does come to pass, which it does seem like that's probably the case. It makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of people would probably agree that Sam was their best player last year. I think overall he was their best player. He was obviously a guy that kind of like brought the good vibes to the team. He was always the one, like every time they'd cut to player cams, he was like super pumped, hyping everybody up. You can tell from his like stream persona as well. He's just like a very like charismatic, happy guy a lot of the time. And I think that this team, that was sort of one of the criticisms of the team is that it seemed like everybody would just like go to work when they would play on this team. It's like, all right, showing up to my job, my 9 to 5 in my cubicle playing Valorant all day. And that doesn't seem like a particularly good way to kind of like build a very successful team long term. The FNS comeback is very interesting to me just because of like what you said. He said he wasn't going to come back. Like a lot of people are like, how could he possibly want to come back? He's making so much money from streaming. And I guess my counterpoint to that would just be that if you are a successful streamer, everything is shown that if you're a very successful streamer and you leave, when you come back, you just get even bigger. Like every time, like, the Dr. Disrespect gets banned from somewhere and he comes back like a month later, his stream blows up even bigger. Same thing with, like all these streamers basically had this kind of effect. So I wouldn't worry too much about that personally. And it's obvious that he loves competing. He's been competing for a long time. And the last sort of piece of the puzzle is like, he doesn't want his lasting legacy to be the Billy losses, right? So
yeah,
if you come back, I mean, here's the thing. If you come back now, there's like fairly low risk, I think, because the team is in shambles anyway. Like they built this supposed juggernaut. It did not work out. You come in, you're either the savior or the team was cooked to begin with. And everybody in the fans will continue to blame Chet or whoever else for the problems, right?
Yes.
What about your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it makes sense, and I think a lot of people have theorized that because they've benched Demon 1, that actually probably what's most likely going to happen is FNS, and some will probably play for NRG next year as well, and then Demon 1 might come back at that point, and they'll go from there, because they released Marved, but they only benched Demon 1. So that's kind of like a bit of speculation on most people's, what most people are thinking, which, it seems like an okay idea. I don't hate that whatsoever. I think the interesting question is how good will they be, right? Because obviously, like now this roster, people are looking at it and they're like, okay,
it's just last year, but Ethan for artists.
Yeah, it's like, okay, that was, the last year NRG team was okay, but maybe you've had a downgrade in firepower with artists to Ethan overall. Maybe better utility, maybe better fits in with the team, maybe better. But I think a lot of people looking at it and be like, do you now have a different problem of like, do you have enough firepower now, right, to compete with like some of the best teams, which might be fair. I don't know. It's interesting because they are still in a position to where they can, make champs, right? They're still 3-3, I think,
right.
Is what they ended.
Everybody in their group is 3-3, and there's only sort of like 2 standouts in Americas with big like record advantages.
Yeah, so they still definitely have a decent shot of making it. I guess that's the question, really. Let's just do one word answer. Will they make champs?
One
word.
Yeah, let me just look at Americas real quick. Just because I need to gauge things.
I'll give my answer whilst you look up. I'm gonna say that they will. I'll say that they will make champs. I think they'll probably scrape kind of into the playoffs. I don't think they'll be convincing off the bat, but I think they'll do just enough to get into playoffs, and then they'll be able to use their experience and kind of use their,
You think
what they know.
they'll make it through like the playoff 3 slots, not through points? Is what you're saying?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
I mean, I don't think they can make it through points, or it would be incredibly unlikely.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that they'll just use that little bit of wisdom, that extra wisdom they've got. Oh, blur. To yeah, find a way through.
Yeah, I think.
But I think they'll finish like third. I think they'll be like the last team that qualifies.
Man, this is so tough because I think for me it comes down to it's going to be like either them or G2 are kind of like the last spot that I would look at because I think Sentinels will make it. I think 100 Thieves will make it. And ooh, maybe it's easier than I think. I'm going to say yes as well. And I think
Loud Crew.
It's like so many of these teams are like kind of in shambles
Lev.
right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's maybe a little bit easier path than I'm thinking initially. I think another thing that's really important to think about with this team, because we'll get to some of these other roster moves. IGLs are being dropped, coaching staffs are being overturned. This is literally FNS coming back to play with Chet. It's the same system they've been playing before with basically the same players, the same roster. The only difference, of course, being Ethan for Artis, but Ethan is a hardcore CS player, and this team is through and through a CS team. Like this has always been their identity. They play the game in a way that's very kind of like methodical, CS based. Like let's push and pull. Let's play the numbers game. Let's have good executes to be able to like spice up the rounds and rely on sort of like really really good tack shooter fundamentals to win the game. And honestly, I think that if you just kind of one for one Artis for Ethan in the sort of supportive role that Artis ended up kind of playing a bit last year, I think it's an upgrade. I think Ethan is a much better player than Artis in that role. Now, the big sort of issue with the firepower side of things, obviously you take out, arguably the best aimer in the game. And then Marved has also been kind of like a flashy player as well. Now, I think that Som proved that in my opinion, I would say Som is a better player than Marved, just straight up. I think, he doesn't necessarily have maybe quite the same impact from lurks, but I think that's because FNS is like the main lurker on that team. And I think that Som is a much better anchor player than Marved ever was. And Som has like just it's burned into my brain. Back yellow on Icebox, Som, you can't get through. Like it's impossible to get through this area. He's gonna kill everybody. So I think the roles are going to end up working out better. And as far as the firepower goes, I mean, obviously, I think there's no denying FNS a bit of a downgrade from Demon 1 in terms of firepower. I think Som is I think Som is maybe a little bit of an upgrade or about an even side grade from Marv in terms of firepower. And then obviously the question will be, Victor, can he step into this role and play like the primary duelist 100% of the time? He's going to have to play the Jet. He's going to have to play whatever. But I think yes, because I think that Victor's Jet has actually been very good. Like even when they had Ye on the team, they had Victor playing the Jet a lot of the time when Ye was on Chamber and they would play the Jet Chamber stuff. And so his opping is like, it's pretty good. If they ever want to run Som with an op, we know that he can op. I've seen like this speculation, Som will play Jet half the time. It's like, no, he's 100% playing like Smoke's anchor. He's way better at that role than he ever was playing Duelist. And we've seen that Neon's getting buffed. So Victor is one of the better Neons in the world.
Imagine if they mega buff Neon and Victor just takes over. That would be so fun. Oh,
and,
I hope they do. I hope they giga buff Neon. That would be so fun for a bit.
And Victor he was one of the first players to play Yoru. And his Yoru was decent. Like he's kind of a player that fits the Yoru archetype a little bit. And they also have Ethan, who has also been shown to be a pretty decent Yoru. So I think as far as Asian pool goes and overall synergy, I think this team has a real shot to be quite good.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. There's NRG. Let's talk another America's team. MIBR drop everyone but Mazin and Artzin. And they dropped, we talked about this last week as well. They dropped BZK. So, yeah, they're just completely restarting midway through the season. Now, here's the thing: MIBR pretty much can't make champs. They I mean, they haven't won a game. They haven't won a map. So I have no problem with them whatsoever. Just saying, F it.
Yeah.
Might as well restart now. And if we find someone who's good, then good. We can play them next year. And if the guys we bring in on any good, then we can just get rid of them and look again.
Yeah,
Right?
you just
Like
get a whole split to practice and like, it's
yeah,
basically like the best time to be
yeah.
like
It's just a
scrimming and
long
finding.
trial.
Exactly, exactly.
It's just a long trial for next season, essentially for MIBR.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no problem with them doing this. It makes some sense. A little surprised that RGL is gone, but
Yeah.
that's my only real takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, I think Artson he was very clearly like a super unpolished good aimer. Like his decision making was quite poor, but that's something that you can develop over time with more experience. I know people were like, why would they keep Mazin? Like he was terrible this year, but you got to remember he's trying to IGL a team that is like super dysfunctional and just like not good. So I think like he's shown in the past that he can be pretty good, and with hopefully you would assume that if he is being kept, Fraud likes him and they can like develop a relationship and like a structure and a system that is like IGL coach in tandem together, building things from the ground up. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm totally on board with this. Like just blowing the whole thing up. It's obvious this season is a wash. Like you don't really have to worry about being kicked out of the league, so you might as well just start building for next year now. That's kind of what sports teams do. Sometimes you just like tank an entire year. Like we'll get some better draft picks, and then we'll just like start working on like the next 4 years of our franchise. Well, we're terrible.
Yeah. Okay. I think we agree. Just a good idea. Moving away across the waters to Pacific, CrazyGuy is back.
Jesus.
CrazyGuy's back to bleed.
Jesus.
Taking back Ye's spot. Now, did they bench CrazyGuy or did they full release him?
I'm
Because
pretty sure he was fully released.
if they full released him to then sign him back, I mean that is quite funny.
I'm gonna look it up.
Where
Yeah.
did that bring you back to me?
Actual
Uh,
memes happening.
Yeah. And replacing Ye, of course, as well, the guy who he had apparent beef with. So interesting to see how this goes. They haven't released Ye, I don't think, right? They only benched Ye. Pretty
Yeah.
sure.
Also, real quick about the Demon One thing,
Hold on.
because this also relates to Ye. I'm pretty sure that some of these like higher level players have maybe better contracts where it's like you can't cut me this early, or like you have guaranteed amount of contract, so it's easier to be like you take them from the active roster to the inactive roster, so you only have to pay them, I don't know, like 40% or whatever, because there is like usually that's how contracts are structured. You get less if you're on the bench, but maybe they're not allowed to actually just like straight up release them. And so yeah, it's probably something like that. Obviously, Ye probably has a good agent. Demon One probably has a good agent, as the best player in the world for the previous year.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, this is look, Bleed. They won one game, right? In Pacific, I'm pretty
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably cooked. You're probably done here, really, Bleed. I mean, their chance of getting into champs, I mean, if you just take a look at it, yeah, they're 1-5 as well. So they've only got 4 games to play, so they can max go 5-5. So this season is probably over. And I do think it's interesting, particularly for obviously G2 are finding some success, but obviously for the Ascension teams, they're a ticking time bomb.
Right.
Right? Like you've got 2 years and it's like, well, you got to do something,
Yeah.
like it'll be interesting. I think it'll be interesting with Gentle Mates this offseason as well if they continue to struggle. Like, what do they do also? Because you're just going to be in there for 2 years, do nothing, go home. Like, okay, sure, maybe a team, could get kicked out. And I think, looking at a team, I mean, Bleed, we obviously know have quite a lot of money, so that's obviously a positive in their direction in general. And they have spent money obviously on their Valorant team and getting to this position. They're obviously trying, to be as good as they can. G2 obviously are a big org who really only didn't get in. Let's face it, we all know why. And then you've got Gentle Mates as well, who obviously, I think if we could redo it right, I think if you redid it right now, I think Gentle Mates would get in, considering the clear fan base that they have, the passion that the Gentle Mates fans turn up into the venue with, and
Yep.
one of the highest sales in terms of the gun skins. Like I think I think Riot probably dropped the ball, honestly. I don't know if Gentlemates applied. I'm assuming they did, but I think they actually kind of dropped the ball there, not allowing Gentlemates in, because I think, again, if we did it again right now, they probably would be in. But still, that means for these teams, of course, they need to, they need to be doing stuff, right? They need to be making a name right now, because you're not going to be in. And that's going to be a very interesting thing to see what happens next year as well.
Oh my god, I know.
With the rosters, like, let's say G2 continue to have, maybe not like winning tournaments, right? But let's say that the G2 squad that we've got now, with some iteration of that, the guard core, if they continue to do like pretty well and get to, like 2 tournaments a year and stuff like that, like at the end of next year, obviously someone's gonna pick them up, right?
Yeah, it's bizarre. It is such a bizarre thought.
Do you pick up the whole team? Do they all spread off in their own little direction? It's a very it's going to be very weird.
Because if they're a top 5 team in Americas and they're forced to go down to tier 2, like that seems so weird. Like how does that work, right?
yeah, that's going to be an interesting one for next year, surely. But yeah, CrazyGuy is back on Bleed. Do you have anything to add on that?
I mean, at first I was just like, bro, what is going on? Like, this guy has just been flaming your org publicly on Twitter, flaming the players, calling everybody like backstabbing snakes, like just insane, unhinged shit. It's like almost
I love when people call other people snakes.
It's almost as bad as like the gangsta stuff. Like, is basically what he was doing.
Yeah, very public.
But that being said, it was very obvious that they desperately need an IGL, and like they've seen what he can do as an IGL, and the coaching staff has not changed, so they know this guy. There was a public message from Scary saying that like this year has been like super stressful, like maybe like we kind of stopped seeing eye to eye, like we've talked about it, we've squashed the beef. We'll see. I mean, they obviously got along well enough to qualify, so maybe that is true, and maybe Ye's personality just didn't mesh with the team, and that's just what it is. I'm very interested to see what happens with Zest. I think that he looked excellent this year, considering the circumstances, and he and CrazyGuy play the same role. So we'll see what happens with that. I mean, I suppose you could move Zest over to like the Viper stuff, because that's what he was doing for DRX towards the end of his tenure there, and just let CrazyGuy continue to play like the recon initiator. But I would assume that basically this is kind of like an MIBR thing. Like, let's just kind of like start now, go all in for next year, and hope for the best, basically.
Yeah. I'm laughing because I'm just thinking like Bleed might become, and we'll talk about this with our next topic as well, Bleed might become just a little retirement home for ex-DRX players. Because Bleed Stax, it's got a nice ring to it, I think.
I mean,
DRX are releasing. Is it releasing or benching again? I mean,
so
the effect is the same.
It's basically released because anytime they bench somebody, but they say and they're allowed to explore other options, as in like, please somebody else sign this guy, so we don't have to keep paying them.
So DRX is getting rid of Stax. This one came out of the blue, I think, for a lot of people. I don't think many people would have predicted that this was going to happen. It's always interesting to me, like a PR stuff. This happens a lot, like in the NFL as well. Like, you just like you drop like your big news story that like won't go over well. You just drop it on like a Friday evening because it's the weekend and no one will report it, and like no one will pay attention. It's like, let's just drop this during fucking Shanghai and no one will like. Let's try and just slip this under the radar. Hopefully, no one notices. But tell me why this happened, Elevated. Let's start there. Why would you do this if you were DRX?
Why would you ask me that question? I don't know. I mean, they were
into the mind of Termy.
They were insane in Split 1. They went 5-0. They were the only undefeated team in Pacific. They looked really good. And then, unfortunately, in the playoffs, they got paired up against Paper Rex and GenG. It's like, bro, what else? What else do you want for this
winning that one game against GenG has literally cost Stax his job. The fact that GenG just didn't fucking turn up in that day versus T1 has cost Stax his job. That's tough.
It is tough. I mean, I genuinely don't understand the move. Like, because we've had sort of this discussion about DRX in the past about like, are they capped? Can they actually ever win a tournament with this team?
Hmm.
And I've kind of been on the fence of like, I don't know, like maybe they just aren't good enough. But I've heard from like Chobra, I think, and some of the Pacific casters that Stax is like widely respected as like one of the best IGLs in the region. Um, and I think they were looking good this year. I thought they were like
Yep.
continually looking better every week, and you know it's
Yep.
just unfortunate they ran into these two insane teams, and it's like you kind of almost can't expect the team, even though they went 5-0, you almost can't expect them to beat HyperX and GenG on their first try because they have two players who have never been to an international event. Like they don't know what that step up in pressure is like necessarily.
Yep.
So now you are replacing your IGL with who? Like who on this team is IGLing? That's like is Glow coming out of retirement to IGL? Because that's like literally the only thing that I could think of where it like kind of makes sense. Because otherwise you have to teach an entirely new IGL the system in like 3.5 weeks or whatever until the season starts and hope that you're going to be as good or better than you were in the past. Like
Yep.
I do not understand this. People were speculating that Yeoman, the guy from Rare Atom, might be the guy, but he just got signed fairly recently to a different Korean like tier 2 team. So legitimately, who the fuck is IGLing this team?
I have no idea, and I think that this is a very like I like look. I like Zest and RB. I think everyone does, but I understood like there was to me there was a reason of why you would make those changes, right?
Yeah,
That if you want to genuinely win a tournament, you know, I don't think that the old DRX was going to win a tournament.
yeah.
And so I understood, like, okay, if you were going to replace anyone, probably would have been Destin RB, right? Like, Mako obviously is insane.
Or
Buzz,
Stax potentially, but
or Stacks,
that would
right?
have been
And
in the
now,
off season. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, or Stacks. But getting rid of all three and, doing it now, as you say, like midway through the season as your IGL, it does, it does make you wonder, like, what is going on? And who will IGL for this team. And but here's the thing, like DRX aren't going to be bad, right? Like this is the thing, they still aren't going to be awful. They're still going to be better than almost everyone in Pacific, right? Other than maybe PaperX and GenG.
Well, unless they don't have an IGL,
Well,
like
we'll see about the IGL, but still, the players in and of themselves and just like the player quality they have, they're still going to be good, right? Which is why this like the chance of DRX finishing in the top four and making champs to me was going to be incredibly high, right? Like
mhm.
incredibly
If they
high.
didn't do anything, yes.
Yeah, if they just stuck with. Now to me, like you've just made the one, like you've just made a change that like I still think you probably will, probably.
Maybe you have to like get top three in playoffs, and now I,
Yeah, but if they, I'm thinking even they could like if PaperX and GenG also make it, they'll still probably be third on points as well. They'll still probably because I think that they could win,
yeah, that's
almost
fair.
all of their games and then still be, kind of ahead of everyone else on points as well. So like but that's why it's so weird because that's the thing. Like if you did just like go 9-1 in your regular season games, like you're gonna be fine, right? I assume you'll get a bye again, and then you need to win one of two games, or if you lose those two games, you're probably losing to PaperX and GenG. And if you're losing to PaperX and GenG, then they aren't going to be on the points, and then you'll have the most points. And then, so yeah, you get the point,
Yeah,
right? You get the point. Your chances of making it were incredibly good for DRX.
yeah.
Now there's maybe like some uncertainty because of what you've done, and I don't get it. We'll have to see what they actually do, who they bring in, but it's interesting. And the termy, like, I saw a comment, that on the subreddit that termy in chat right now are basically like, they're like Satan, like Satan has been reborn and taken over termy in chat with how much hate they get in the subreddit. And I don't think that this is helping either, to be honest. But yeah, we'll
I-
see.
Yeah,
We'll see.
I literally don't know who they are replacing. Like, because Mako is not an IGL, like a very quiet player, and I don't think that they're gonna make Buzz the IGL. He's their duelist. I don't think they're gonna make
Mm-hmm.
Foxy 9 the IGL.
Nope.
I mean, unless like in scrims, like Bane or somebody is like
Yeah.
really calming a ton or something like that,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, let's move on. Let's get to the good stuff, shall we?
sure. I mean, this was pretty
Masters
good.
Shanghai.
This was pretty good.
Masters Shanghai. Now we tend to do it this way, so we'll do it this way again, which is talking about who got eliminated, and then we'll do some preview stuff a bit later on. But let's talk about what we've seen thus far. Let's talk about these teams then. So DRG, they were I'm not sure if they were the first team out. I can't remember who played first, but DRG. I'm pretty sure ranked them 12th. I'm pretty sure almost everyone ranked them 12th in their power rankings, and they finished joint last.
Yep.
The first game that they played against Team Heretics was kind of a stomp. I think it was 13-5, 13-5. They didn't look very good. They looked like they had all the problems that they had before. Their second game against, was it Foot, I think?
Yeah. Also
There
an
was
O2, but better.
Yeah, also an O2, but there was at least signs of life. They were in the game. They could have won a map for sure. Still scrappy, still sloppy, but at least, there was signs of like, okay, we can at least, be at this level somewhat. And I do think that you do commonly see this with, very inexperienced teams. Like we have never been to an international before. Like, none of our players have been here before. I think you do get a little bit of this of like, the lights are just a bit too bright, and that's one thing. And then on top of that though, DRG just were never that good. Like
Yeah.
that's the kind of like other crux of this is the DRG coming into this tournament just aren't that good. There's no other way of putting it really. They play very meta comps. They don't do anything particularly special. They do some bizarre stuff that you're like, why would you ever think to even do that? That's not very good. And against these level of teams, that's not going to go great for you. And I'm sure you probably agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly it's fairly commendable what they've accomplished. Like they qualified through Ascension and they made an international event and they looked relatively competitive against Foot. Like I think that is a pretty awesome season so far, even if they don't do anything else for the rest of the year. That's a pretty good season for this team. I agree. Basically, they look like a very unpolished team. But I think it's almost kind of like the same track of development maybe that we saw from FPX. Because like the first time FPX showed up on LAN, we're like, what the fuck is this team doing? Yeah, they look crazy. They have some talented aimers, but they look like they don't really know what they're doing. But every game that you see them play, they get a little bit better. And so, yeah, I mean, this team probably, I think I've said this in the past, they might need to make like a roster move or two to kind of like hit that next level in terms of like the overall like best in slot players for their spots. But they obviously have talent. I mean, I think that Luke, T-Virus Luke was a guy that I was kind of worried about because he was in the regular season, he was taking like 45% of the first duels for the team or something like that, and he was losing a lot of them.
Yeah.
But he actually kind of stepped it up on LAN and performed relatively well. And obviously Vukashu is quite good. And Nishao TZH was also very good on LAN as well. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I think this team has done a commendable job, but they were always going to be 12th. Basically, I would maybe rank them above T1, honestly, from their performance.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's important as well that a lot of people, and we'll get to FPX as well, a lot of people are going to be thinking about the Chinese teams. Like, let's say EDG don't do that well, right? Let's say EDG, like, maybe they go out straight away, or maybe they, go 5th, 6th, like max, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is what most people would expect. A lot of people are going to be saying, like, oh, the Chinese teams, they didn't do that well again. But you have to remember, like, they are playing against when we are comparing like the regions in our head, like when Gentle Mates play Foot, it's a 2-0.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have to consider this in your mind as well that like, a lot of the other games that you will see, against these level of teams, like in their normal region, like they're stomps as well. Like Team Heretics will stomp some teams in EMEA. Right? So it's not like it's all China bad, and we'll get to FPX because of course they didn't get stomped. Um,
Careful,
I think
careful. He didn't say China bad. He was just using it as a phrase. I don't know if you saw the Zekken drama.
yes. No, I I think this is just a chance for DRG. Like if you're a DRG fan, if you want to see this team do well, then I think obviously making champs and then just showing improvement doesn't even have to be winning a game necessarily, but just like EDG. I think EDG didn't win a game until their like third or maybe even fourth tournament that they went to.
I think it was
So
a third. Yeah.
yeah, so I think you can just look at that at a similar sort of trajectory of just going like, okay, if you can improve for champs, and then maybe win a map, maybe make it 2-1 losses instead, like that's fine. And then you come back next year, maybe you do like as you say, you make a little player upgrade, and then I mean we're talking about the essential teams. DRG of course will be in that bucket as well. Of they're on a time bomb also.
Yep.
But if they can then, make a couple upgrades, then maybe all of a sudden you're winning games at internationals, and then, who knows what's happening, right? So, yeah, that's the future for DRG. But let's talk about that team you mentioned, T1. T1. T1 to me, I mean, they like I mentioned earlier, they not only did they not perform at this tournament, they also cost Stax his job. So now it kind of like is kind of annoying, in a way, because again, everyone's going to be blaming Termi, but in the same way, you could blame T1, who never should have been here, really. Given the way that they played, the start of the season, that's the thing that really gets to me. It's the start of the season, at kickoff, or like you came out of kickoff thinking, oh, T1, they looked good. They played a very close game versus Paper X in that, game to make it to Masters Madrid. And I was thinking, oh, T1, good for you, T1. Like, you're clearly like, oh, like a third, fourth place team in Pacific. Good for you. Then throughout the entirety of the split, they weren't very good.
Mm-hmm.
And then they squeaked into playoffs and then squeaked through. And, Lord knows how they beat GenG on that day. Like, there could be an hour-long study into that game of all the things that must, like GenG, I don't know, were they sick? Were they just didn't care, just thought like, oh, we can turn up and beat this team no matter what?
They were trying to sabotage DRX. They knew that they were
yeah
gonna drop Stax.
Did they just hate Stax? I don't know, maybe, I don't know, right? Maybe there's some Korean drama there, where the GenG guys, they don't like Stax, and they knew, but hey, we'll beat DRX in the lows and then we'll cost Stax his job. I don't know, but they just aren't very good. Like that's all I can really say. And I don't think that they like the Sunset game in particular for their second game. I mean, we had a brief
against Lev.
Against Lev. We had a brief talk about it. Like, I don't get it. I mean, the game wasn't close.
Oh, the role switches that they made were.
They're playing Sire on Gecko. He's
bizarre.
going 5-18 on Gecko.
Yeah.
But
when Carpe has played Gecko on every other time they've ever played Gecko the entire season.
yeah.
And Izu is a smokes player, and Saya plays.
a smokes player, and you've got Carpe on Omen, Sire on Gecko.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? I don't understand. Like, why? In an elimination game. I don't understand it whatsoever. And look, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. They did win a map. They did beat G2 on Icebox. They won a map 13-1.
Right.
The one map that they won, they literally only went A on attack and won.
And I will say
rounds.
G2 whiffed about 80% of their shots. It was literally, it looked like a team of Radiants playing against a team of Gold players in terms of like the.
I mean, they literally went A every round.
Yeah.
12 rounds in a row, they went A, and they won 13-1.
Yeah.
I mean, that is crazy. That's the only map that they won. I mean, but to be fair, they could have won Lotus as well, I suppose. I mean, that was close. That was 14-12. But that's the thing, when I was looking at T1 coming into this event, and I do my little stats page, that was my main takeaway looking at T1. Like,
oh, their map pools.
Oh, they don't have any good maps. Like, they don't have any good maps.
Yeah.
Like, their win rates on every map is like, their Lotus, I think, was okay, which they played a ton. They literally only pick Lotus if the opponent doesn't ban it, because they've got one decent map, and then the rest are worse than decent. The rest are below par.
Yeah.
All of their maps. Like, how? So yeah, it's like, of course this team isn't going to do very well. I can't remember if in our joint power rankings we put them 11th. I know I definitely put them 11th for mine.
Yeah, I think they were 11th because
Good.
it was
Good.
DRG 12th, T1 11th. Yeah.
Good. So we were right. Good for us.
Yeah.
Another win for
Okay.
Cosmic Divide. Go on. Go
I
off on T1.
I need to talk about this team a little bit because I have some really serious issues with what they're doing. Saya player looks kind of like a shell of himself.
Yeah.
He is one of the best oppers in the world. Straight up. Like we saw that when he was with the guard. We saw that in his previous years.
Oh, the guard just lives rent free in everyone's head, don't they?
But they have basically committed to Xcurate being their full-time opper.
Yeah.
And Xcurate has been very good at opping. Like, it's fine. He's very good at opping. But Saya is unlocked when you enable him and make him your star player. And right now, they seem to have like a very weird system that is not enabling Saya player. I don't even really know who they're enabling, to be honest. It's almost like they're enabling like Xcurate, maybe.
He's IGLing himself.
Yeah,
Get me in the star role.
It's very strange. And like, I mean, I think Rossi has kind of just been like this stable rock. He's like fairly consistently performing well. You know, he's playing his role pretty consistently. But everybody else is just like wildly in flux. I mean, Carpe had like the series of his life against the guard. He went like plus 17 or something like that for the first time ever.
You mean G2, but it's the guard.
Oh, against
the guard.
G2.
We're living rent free in your head again.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't understand. Like, why is Saya playing Gecko? Why is Izu playing more duelist than Saya player? Why is Saya player not opping? Like, why are we not enabling anybody? It's like, this is a team. Basically, this team is Leviatan with worse players, meaning that they don't have any system. It's just 5 players playing ranked and hoping that they make the right plays and randomly like pull off these rounds together. And we'll get to Lev. I'm gonna fucking yell at them as well. But this team, like, they need to figure out who they are and like understand what their personnel is and actually like play to their strengths, because right now I don't think they have a plan. I mean, I'm sure they have a plan, but it doesn't make any sense based on what they're doing. And I would hope that in season 2 and split 2 that they actually like play to Saya player's strengths, because he has the ability to be a truly top tier 1 duelist.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's shown that in the past. So I don't know why they're not doing that. And the IGLing on this team, like, it's okay. They play a kind of a counter-strikey type. Again, it's like very contacty, very kind of slow, methodical, re-clear stuff, push-pull. That is a fine style to play, but there's no extra layers to it. It's like they have one idea, and if the idea doesn't do anything, then they lose the round 100% of the time. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can't really disagree. I'm just kind of annoyed at this team, to be honest, and I don't think they'll make champs. You know, I don't think that they will make champs.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, that is what it is.
Maybe they'll sign Stax.
Do you want to go on a rant first about Lev?
Oh yeah.
Do you want to speak first?
I'll just go ahead.
You go.
Lev might be the worst team in the entire league. Like, legitimately, as a team. I'm speaking as like a team. Lev might be the worst team in the entire league, because this team is 5 very talented players that have no fucking idea how to play together. Like, it is absolutely unacceptable how many times they lost 5v3s, 3v1s, massive advantage rounds where they are so unlosable unless all of the players who are still alive make individual bad plays, and they do that consistently. There was actually, in the elimination match, I'm pretty sure it was the elimination match, they lost 4 5v3s in a row. I was like, what am I watching? These guys get 2 kills, and I'm like, okay, cool. They should never lose this round. And then King randomly swings, and then Osbos randomly swings, and then Calm is like going on some flank, but his teammates are just dying one at a time, so his flank never gets activated. There's no utility being thrown for each other. It's just 5 individual dry swings, and they lose them all because of course they do. Like, I don't care how fucking
do to you.
I don't care how good you are as a player. If you're playing against a team that's playing together and there's 2 rifles trained on you and you swing into them, even if you kill one, you're dead 100% of the time. This team is awful. They do not have any team synergy, and everybody's trying to blame the coaches. Maybe the coaches deserve some flame. They're trying to blame Calm because he had like one of the worst tournaments of all time. Of course he did. He's a support player, and none of his teammates are alive to support because they're just taking random fucking swings and nobody's talking to each other. Like, they literally do not look like they are talking to each other. It is so bizarre to watch this team, and I think that they probably, it's so funny that we've come full circle. We're like, this team could have imploded.
Yeah,
and then we're like, this team has saved themselves. I am very sure that this team is a couple losses away from collapsing entirely. Like, I have never, ever seen a team so talented look so fucking bad before.
I'll counter that point with NRG.
Fair. Not the company you want to be in.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I mean, it's hard to disagree though. The foot left game is one of the sloppiest games I can remember. Like, it took me back. Like, that's like going back in time, that game. But like with better, like the team play, just pure slop. The individual talent, insane. But the team play, pure slop. Right, from both sides, really. I mean, I remember, I don't know if you were talking about Sunset, but I remember Foot won Sunset 13-1.
Yeah.
And the 1 came at 11-0. It was 11-0. At about 5-0, in my opinion, Foot just started playing ranked. Like, pure ranked. They got to 5-0, and they were like, fuck it. Like, it looked like a ranked game. Like, pure, like, I'm doing what, I'm swinging this, I don't give like, just anytime. I'm taking any opportunity to swing and take a fight, I'm doing it. No util, I'm just doing it. Oh, the smoke's there? No, don't care. I'm swinging, right? And whatever happens, happens. And they would constantly, as you were saying, getting into 3v5s or a 1v3 or, you know, and then Lev would do the same thing back, right? It was unbelievable. And sure, like, again, the individual talent, right, to win the 1v3 or to win, you know, to get 4 kills when you're in a 3v5, you know, the individual play was like, whoa, what a play by you, right? But the, like, team play, but it would be like 4 1v1s, right? It would be 3 1v1s. It wouldn't be, you know, and double swings were rare. It was an absolute mud fest. Really throughout. There was some times where it wasn't as bad, but like for most of the game, it felt like that. You know, I can think of multiple times on Bind as well that it got very sloppy. And yeah, it's a tough one for Lev. It's really like just such a and this is the problem, right? That like they do have a lot of people from different cultures with different play styles, and like if we're being real, you know, again, like unfortunately, if any team signs Aspas, apparently that means they are now a super team because you signed Aspas. Because like, you know, let's be real. Like, and this happened last year as well, right? Like Cloud9 signed Yay, therefore super team. But the rest of the players, you know, weren't. You know, like it's just, oh, you just signed like the best player in the world. That doesn't make you a super team. That just means you signed the best player in the world, right? Like FNATIC were a super team, right? They had like top 3 player at every position, right? That's a super team, and they won stuff, right? You know, but Lev are never a super team. They just have Aspas, and King is also quite good.
And Calm was a world champion.
And Calm is a world champion. Yeah. You know, but obviously Calm hasn't been playing well, and I think there are 2 sides to that, right? You are definitely correct that people are probably being way too harsh in that, you know, he's playing, like when you think of Calm doing well last year on EG, it's a literal fucking 180 from what this team is doing. Yeah. Right? When you think good Calm play, you think like crazy Sova. In my head comes crazy Sova dart in fracture that leads to a Sova ult where they're getting pinched on from both sides and everyone's on the same page. That's a good complay, or in my mind, right? Instead, now what we've got is, I don't know, I'll just randomly flank sometimes, and because I'm calm, everyone is expecting it anyway, and I'm dying. He does need to flank less too. That is something he needs to do less, because people seem to just be on it. They're like, oh, it's this guy. He's flanking. Like, he's going the other way. Like, we know that.
I actually need to do some stats. I need to look at his assists per round last year versus this year, because I would imagine that it's quite a bit less. Yeah, sorry.
So, but it's tough. Like, where, like, obviously they did make Shanghai, so it's not like a disaster. It's not a disaster. And
it's a disaster for Americas, because this team is not good.
What? So that means the rest of Americas can't be that good either.
I mean, they weren't. Is the thing.
Yeah,
they weren't. True. Is the thing.
Yeah, that's true. But like, I don't know. Going forward.
This team is not making Shanghai. This team is not making champs.
You don't think they're making champs?
No.
See, that's in my head. I'm like,
no.
They've got. I think they did pretty well, right? They won like 5 games. They're like 5-1, so they're in a great spot to make playoffs. It'd be almost hard not to. It would almost be hard not to make playoffs for them. So if you're already in playoffs, it's then like, I mean, they do have to play against the other group. That's got. Crew in it, okay, Cloud9 or whatever, Oh, they're 4-1, sorry, but they have to play. Oh no, they play their own group, don't they? They play their own group, bro. They're playing MIBR and Fury. That's 2 wins. You're up to 6. You probably made it. Like,
they're gonna make playoffs. They're not gonna make Shanghai. Like, this team is not gonna make Shanghai. Although maybe they just sneak in on points. Yeah, fuck.
But no, points is much less likely, though, I feel like, particularly, obviously, if 100 Thieves win. But because Sen got the +6 points, for winning.
Well, I think Sentinels is going to be top 3 in playoffs.
Yeah, possibly. But then also 100 Thieves have got the +3, and you would assume 100 Thieves are still going to do well. I mean, they could also make it. So, yeah, could they be 3rd? Yeah, actually, they could. They could finish 3rd in this.
Yeah.
And make it that way. God, that'd be funny.
I mean, okay, so here's the thing. I'm super down on this team. I'm super down on this team. I think they are a terrible team as far as like team cohesion. But I will say that, it is possible for teams to turn it around. They need to have like a very honest heart-to-heart within the team. Listen, we are trolling. We are way too good of players to be playing this badly as a team.
Yeah.
And maybe they can actually turn it around and come into Split 2 as like a good team. It's actually probably good that they got fucking bounced this early and looked this bad, because now they get to go home. There's no illusion. Yeah. Yeah, they get to go home. They get to work on the next meta potentially. They get to have this conversation like, okay, we're not actually that good. We need to put in the work. We need to like come together as a team. So this might actually be the best thing that could have happened to this team. And maybe I'm like doubting their ability to actually like figure it out too much, because that is always possible, but right now, if you take this team and they don't have some sort of like awakening moment and they just play like they are in Split 2, there's no fucking way that they make it to champs.
So yeah, I don't know, because I think America, like, if the NRG experiment doesn't work, I think they've got a great chance. Like, send 100 Thieves, I'll grant you, but you look at the rest. I mean, obviously G2 as well, like, are a decent team, but like, there's a chance there, because it's like, who knows what's happening with Loud, Crew, they beat Crew, I'm still not convinced. Cloud9, I'm not convinced, Jorgamon was in my chat before, I think during the playoffs, and he was like, I'll make champs for you, don't worry. I'm starting to, we'll get to that when we, after Shanghai.
Okay, big dog, that'd be pretty hype.
Yeah, EG, maybe, who knows? Anyway, that's enough Lev hate.
Yeah. And again, I always have to like sort of qualify this. I don't dislike the players. I don't dislike the team. I just have to be realistic about what I'm watching with my 2 eyeballs.
I've got that bundle, but it was a bit of a mess. And in fact, well, we might talk about this a bit later as well with Team Heretics. They have the same problem, but just with 1vx.
Yeah.
They can't win a 1vx to save their life. Holy. Speaking of the team that Heretics are eliminated, though, perhaps the saddest thing to happen in a tournament for a while. I don't remember getting on board for a team at a tournament like this since Zeta. I don't think.
Ooh.
Like, I don't remember like wanting, because like I watched so much Valorant. You know, people always ask me like, who do you support, who do you root for, and generally I just say like teams that I find interesting. But
Yeah.
but even then, it's not like I'm actually like rooting for them.
Right.
I was rooting for FPX. Like I was like genuinely like sad when FPX lost, because I was
Yeah.
like genuinely rooting for them, because I just think that just everything they did, the way that they play, the stupid comps, the
Or
massive
genius.
the massive level ups from some of their players that we've seen recently.
Yeah.
I just like I was like, this team is just like the crowd going crazy for them as well. Like, it was just everything.
The
Everything
onstage
about this team.
pop-offs, life has so
Yeah.
much personality. Like, yeah, it's
Everything about this team was just so great.
yeah.
And unfortunately they didn't make it. And again, thinking back to that icebox, after the map ended, I said to my Twitch chat, I was like, I think that's probably the best map we've had for a long, long time. You know, since what, like, I might even say since lock-in map 5 icebox FNATIC Loud. You know, I really think that icebox map was the best map we've had thus far this year. It wasn't the best game ever, right? The first two maps were actually really boring, really not good, right?
Yeah.
Just stomps. Clearly, one team was way better than the other. Boring.
Yeah.
But that final map, I mean, the massive comeback, the 10-2 down, you know,
Insane.
they just start rallying it back. They start winning, they start stacking rounds. All of a sudden it's 10-7. You're like, oh, what's going on?
And doing it against the Terminator that is Woot as well, who's just like absolutely sending it every round.
But then there was so many moments of like it felt like towards the end, every round's a 2v2. Every round's like a clutch situation. And you know, FPX they just kept winning. They just kept winning them. They just kept winning them. And you know, Heretics, you could see. I think you could literally see the panic on the Heretics players' faces. Like, once it started getting to like, you know, when FPX were on like 9-10, like every time it cut to like Neilzinho or the players, they looked really like, oh my god, they looked shell shocked of like, oh, I can't believe this is happening to us. Oh my god, it's happening. Oh my god, we're gonna throw this away. Oh, this is so embarrassing. Like you almost just saw that happen to them. The round 24. Oh my god. Round 24 though, because that's the thing. FPX were 10-2 down. They managed to get to 12 first.
Yeah.
They got to 12.
Yeah.
And everyone's gonna remember the last round where they lost to time, but they lost that round to time as well.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like they were just way too slow. Like, again, game on the line, maybe there's more pressure, right? Like, now all of a sudden you have something to lose. Like, before it was like, you know, who cares, right? We got nothing to lose. And then all of a sudden you're winning and it's like, oh my god, we got something to lose. And then all of a sudden, like, things that just happen a tick slower. Everything's like, oh, I don't know what to do. And you know, it became too much for them. And oh man, it was so sad though. And just the way that they play. You know, the triple smokes, they hate sentinels, they hate information.
But they play their comps well is the thing. It's like they play these weird ideas, but they actually, you can see that there's actual thought behind the ideas, and like the reason that they're doing the things that they're doing makes sense when you like kind of step back from like, oh, this is a weird comp, and you actually like think about like what the util does, what the players are, like what their roles are. It's very cool, and it makes me really hope that what they do is that they just kind of like they go on like the EG or EDG trajectory, which is that they just keep this team of players together and they just continue to build on what they're doing and expanding their playbook, because there was like their Sunset ideas are really good, but I think once Heretics saw it, they're like, oh, okay, we can just anti this, and like, you know, they had a couple like really kind of like pop off performances from Woot and stuff, it made it like impossible. It made it more one sided than it should have been, honestly, because I think the Sunset that FPX plays is actually pretty good, and like they showed that in a previous match as well.
That was always the thing with FPX though at previous tournaments, is that they played weird comps, but they looked like they had no idea what they were doing. Right? It always was like, yeah, okay, you're playing like this weird comp, but you're just like your default doesn't use the comp correctly. Like, you're not actually using the util for what you've actually got, right? Whereas, as you said, this time it looked like, their game plans made sense, and because they play such weird comps, they actually play, multiple maps like Icebox and Sunset, right? Like on Sunset these days, attacking teams don't touch mid for the first 40 seconds. They never do. They take B main or they take A. Like, most teams don't touch, like, but FPX almost every round, we're running like a solid full mid default.
Yeah.
Right? Like a proper 1-3-1 stuff. Like, and it was interesting. And on Icebox as well, literally no one has ever run a mid default on Icebox before.
I know,
but
right?
FPX do.
Yeah.
FPX do. They'll smoke off literally everything because they've got 3 smokes. And they'll foray into mid, and I actually think they could do more with that. But it means that they play the maps in a very strange sense. That if you haven't played against it before, if you don't know how to counter it, it can be very, very tough. As like for instance, Heretics. Personally, I think Heretics, and I don't know exactly what went into this, but I think that they showed a little bit of arrogance, I would say, picking defense side on Lotus against FPX's comp. I think that was them kind of being like, we know what we're doing against you, FPX. We've got you, and they didn't. They didn't have them at all. Like they struggled on that defense side massively, and I was just like, why on earth would you ever pick defense side against a no sentinel triple smokes comp? What possible reason could you have to think that would be a good idea? And it wasn't a good idea. And they did get beaten. I mean, they got beat on their attack side as well. So it is what it is. They just got beat. But yeah, I was just sad. I was sad. Go on, talk to me. Tell me how sad you were. I was more sad.
I mean, I bet you were. I don't really get that sad when a team loses.
I'm just crying.
I mean, it's okay. It's okay to cry, TMV.
I wasn't crying.
I mean, I'm just excited. I like I said, I just hope this team doesn't like get down on their ideas and that they just continue to do what they're doing. I mean, I think they probably will, because they have been doing this weird stuff for a while, and it's just been getting better over time.
Berlin said it comes from their coach, so.
Oh yeah, okay.
As long as they have the coach, then I'm assuming they're just gonna stick with it.
Good. And I mean, dude, like, Life is one of the best aimers in the game. He's so good. A little overheating too much. a lot overheating too much.
Chinese duelist overheats too much, but it's really good. Huh.
But my God, is he talented from an aim perspective, mechanically. I mean, all of these players had like
that was really, a big thing. Like
really step up moments. Yeah.
Berlin, like before they've just been like little bot frag bots.
Yeah.
In these tournaments, and when they get to like an international level. But like they have gotten better. They played really well.
Yeah, I wanted to just mention that every time that I've done sort of my statistical analysis to do like the top 10 players, I keep seeing names like Life and Iang, for example. He's always been in like the top 3 or 4 of these initiator support category. And I've always been like, I don't really know how to read this. Like him and Nobody have really, really good stats, but it's like, in China, are they really that good? He's really good. He's a really good player.
Who was he playing for before? He played for, was it Attacking Seoul? He played for some other Chinese team at an international event, I'm pretty sure. And he went crazy. And I remember just thinking like, oh, the rest of these players, they aren't that good, but this guy's insane.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he's I mean they've got a good team. Oh man, I really hope they won. It would have been just for the crowd alone, it would have been very exciting to see, FPX. Unlucky.
Yeah,
but because my fear is that FPX are actually better than EDG.
And EDG will lose, and then we'll have no Chinese team for like the last like 3 days of the tournament. Yeah, that'd be unfortunate.
That's my fear.
For sure.
Yeah.
But maybe EDG will be good. We'll see, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll have to see. But that's my fear. But at least like it gives you some hope, right? Yeah. It gives you some hope. And this is the thing, like, this is kind of a weird situation where for a couple of years, because of the way that Valorant is, we like, back to Reykjavik 2021 and, minor region. Remember the death of minor region? Like no one says, no one has said minor region in Valorant for, quite some time. But,
Yeah.
with the introduction of China, they kind of have become, somewhat the minor region.
Right.
But I think that particularly FPX's performance, right? Like if you do have two teams, if it's not just EDG carrying the load on their own, if there are two teams that can genuinely, beat some of the best teams from other regions somewhat consistently, then you can start to actually be like, okay, the rest of the league surely will catch up soon.
That's kind of what happened with Pacific, right? Because it was like DRX was challenging and PaperX kind of was that second team, and now we have GenG and like even as like down as we are on T1, like they did relatively well in some.
But it's just the standing of the whole region, right? That like, I mean, right now you might even say the Pacific. I mean, it's tough because the bottom of Pacific is very bad, but the middle pack of Pacific is probably better than the middle pack of the other.
Yeah, they might be the best region.
Yeah, they might be. But no, that's what I'm hoping for, and we will get there, right? Like China will catch up, and eventually, we'll just have 4 regions, and hopefully the 4 regions live in harmony and no Fire Nation attacks. That's all we can hope for. Right. Let's move on. Before we go into predictions, though, we just want to talk about some little topics here. Some little things that maybe we've noticed, meta type stuff. So the first thing you've noted here is a very attack-sided map pool. Now overall in the tournament, just let me try and get it up. Yeah, we got it here. We are at a 54% attacking win, 46 defense. Now obviously that is somewhat based on the maps that get played more often.
Yeah, exactly.
For instance, like Acend has only been played twice. Obviously, Acend heavily defender-sided, yada yada. Lotus is the most picked map, and that's a very attack-sided map. But if we just go through the maps, Lotus 55-45, Sunset is 50-50. Interestingly, Icebox is 67-33 at 5 games. I mean, again, that is the FPX. Effect is definitely on this for sure, because obviously they play very attack-sided comps themselves, but it is what it is. Bind 56-44. Obviously these are low sample sizes, and then you've got Breeze, which is actually 54 defense, Ascent, which is 60 defense. God, I hate that map. And then Split's only been played once, and it's 67-33, but that was just that one game. But yeah, I think when you go through some of these maps, like particularly if we're talking about like just from a ranked player's perspective, right? Like Lotus, definitely attack-sided, right? Like in pro, in ranked, like attack-sided, 100%. Sunset, I would say in ranked, particularly if you have enough people who know about the B main post plant, like it's rough to defend B, on this map. It can be very rough. Icebox always attack-sided.
Bind is it's pretty attack-sided now because of the teleport change. It's so much faster to rotate for the attack than it is for the defense, and it's trended towards being attack-sided over the course of this season so far.
And then Breeze as well, I would say, like in a ranked map pool, would also be attack-sided, because the map's so big. So like you've got a lot of these maps, are either quite attack-sided or at least a bit skew attack-sided.
And then remember that we're also bringing back Haven, which is an attack-sided map as well.
Yeah, so I mean that is interesting. I mean, obviously, it's an interesting thing to look at from like the whole game perspective, right? Because when they designed the game, of Valorant, there's some kind of like general principle rules that are just kind of there, right? One of them is that in general, in all invasion games, it's easier to hold space than it is to take space. For the almost all invasion games, that's the way it is. So, that's a thing to consider, that, it's generally just easier to defend something than it is to attack into something. And so that, that helps the defenders. They just have a natural advantage in general. But then that's kind of offset by some of the things that you can see that they do, like obviously the spike plant money, right, is an obvious way of like, oh, well, here's a bit of extra money for the attackers, right? So they can generally just, get on by a bit better than defenders can. Most of the ult ops in the game are attack-sided. right? Here's just another little,
Planting the spike gives
yeah.
you an orb, so naturally attack gets an advantage of ult economy as well, oftentimes.
Yeah, so there's just like little breadcrumbs to help the attack. But maybe as the game progresses, right, and people just get better at using the abilities in general, and coordination maybe gets a bit better, maybe some of those defenders' advantages of holding space, aren't that true when you've got a jet and a raise, sending it in on you straight away, supported by something else, right? Maybe holding that space isn't necessarily an advantage. Or maybe they need to look at it from like an agent perspective as well. Of course, when we're seeing agents like Viper, get nerfed, probably the best like stopping power in the game. Generally, I mean, if we'll talk about the agents in a second, but generally, the agents that tend to get picked quite a lot, do have, Omen has good stopping power. Obviously, Viper, Raze probably if the duelist has the best stopping power. Like it to me, like it's an interesting one to see, like, is that something that they would think about, how could we change this, right? Like, and how would you change it? You could get rid of the spike plant money, that would be like something that they could do if they wanted to, or change where some of these ult ups are to make them like true 50-50s rather than, like slightly attack sided. I'm interested. What do you think?
I think the biggest issue, so I think
Map
all
design,
those are,
maybe?
I think all those are valid points. I definitely think that, especially if we bring back Haven, now we have 2 3-site maps. Like a 3-site map is always going to be attack sided,
Yeah.
like just because it's
The new one might be a 1-site map.
Yeah,
Mr. Elevated.
maybe. But I think for me, the biggest factor that is maybe not being considered by a lot of people is just the agent meta is very attack sided right now. Like the way that people are playing the game is just like,
Go.
yeah, it's just like go forward, right? Yes, you do have, Viper and Cypher being played a lot, but even Cypher is kind of one of the most attack-sided Sentinel agents because he's really good at taking space aggressively with his camera and cages and stuff like that. And so then you've got, KO, Gecko, Sova. These agents are all good at taking space aggressively. They're good at enabling the Jet and the Raze, which are the 2 most played duelists. You've got the Omen, which is kind of a duelist-esque type of smoker as well. And then you've got 2 aggressive lurkers as the other 2 most played agents at this event, which are Cypher and Viper. So everything is like take space aggressively. And I think a lot of this has to do with, what agents are strong, the maps, but also people just kind of like interpreted the game in this particular way and nobody has bothered to explore the counter to this. Anytime you have like a specific thing that works, there is always a counter to it, but you have to like really lean into that counter. And so my theory is that stuff like playing, double Sentinel is probably a good way to counter this, like playing some like Cypher plus Killjoy or like a Cypher plus Deadlock.
It's interesting that to me, like Sage was the second highest win when I did the stats, all the non-mirror stats. Like Sage is second highest, and it's like that.
And if you think about it, okay, you hear Dizzy, you hear the flash from KO. What if you just wall and put a slow orb? Now they don't have any attack utility anymore, and they're just trying to like contact through a space when their entire comp is meant to just like take space aggressively. And I think you actually see this with like. I think a great example of this is 100 Thieves on Bind. I did like a whole video breaking down why their Bind is good and why they have the highest defensive side to win rate in the world on the map. And they're one of the only teams that has a good defensive win rate on the map. It's because they have figured out like how to rotate correctly, and they play a really, really good strong side, weak side thing, which is like kind of a basic of tack shooter stuff, which is like if you have two players or 1 player on a site, that person or those players do not try to hold aggressively. They basically just like try to tax the team as they come into the site and then set up a staging ground for the retake to happen very close to the site. And they basically just like don't give up free kills on the weak side of the map, and then they play more aggressively and fighting on the strong side of the map. And if you can do that well, then you make it much harder for the defenders. And I think right now, fundamentally, a lot of teams are just not good at that for whatever reason. Maybe it's just because all these teams are like still kind of like figuring out the fundamentals. But like Lev is a great example. Like they will almost always fight with the 1 or 2 players and just die and give up the entire site. And then your teammates are just trying to retake. And like if you're retaking with 0 map control and you're losing, I mean, it's like literally the most quintessential ranked experience, right? You have 3 players on one site, you've got 2 players on the other site. 5 players run down the 2 players. They of course take the fight aggressively and die, and now it's 3 players
3v5,
retaking into
yeah.
like 4 or 5 players, and it's like you can't win the game that way. And so the teams that do the strong side weak side stuff well are going to find success. And so there's like bad fundamental strong side weak side, and also just the comps are very attack sided, and people are not really exploring like the counter stuff. Like I really do think that if teams want to counter what's going on, they need to start playing, like Astra and Sage and Deadlock and, Killjoy and Cypher, and like more like less duelists, more sort of like info dump stalling agents. And I think they will find success, but everybody's afraid of playing the attack side with these less sort of explosive comps because it requires more like work to actually like, manipulate the rotations and that type of stuff. So
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and I think, yeah, as I said, some of the stats would back that up with, agents like, I mean, Viper was still the highest win rate agent, right? So like, just having like the super stall of Viper, having the stall of like a Sage, like, it makes sense, of why that could work. But I think we're both subscribers to the kind of like, like card game theory of,
yeah.
how to build a comp. But maybe I don't know if other people are, to be honest. I know we are, but it is what it is. Anyway, was there anything else? Any other meta takeaways? Interestingly, Omen is the most picked agent. Is ahead of Viper. That is again because of a couple things I would say that are like specific to the teams that we have, like FBX don't play Viper on Icebox.
Mm-hmm.
Like little things like that. I would, because
I
obviously
think
again it's not a massive sample, but
the most interesting is that Viper has completely fallen out of Sunset. Obviously, only six sample size of the map, but Viper was a staple of this map for a while, and now it's exclusively like Omen.
Yeah. I mean, we were leaning in that way. I think a lot of teams started to see the success of, particularly Sentinels at Madrid, with the KO Gecko, and then everyone kind of, or Heretics are another good example, right? Where they play the Sova KO. And I think everyone probably saw, those teams, oh, look, these are some of the best Sunset teams, and going like, oh, okay, let's play Double Initiator, no Viper. And really the meta has now come down to on that map of being, which initiators do you want to play? Essentially, that's kind of what it's become, which I find interesting because, it's one of these, weird things of like, Viper's pick rate did start to decline on that map more than others, when I was doing the stats and going through it. But the win rate is actually, it's one of those things like as your pick rate decreases, generally your win rate starts going up, right? Because less and less people are used to it. They don't know how to play against it. And that's what I noticed with Viper as well, that at the start of the year, when a lot of teams were playing it, Viper's win rate was okay. But then towards the end of the year, when only a couple teams were then playing it, Viper just, it was like, oh, well, you win. Good job. You won again, is what I started to notice. But yeah, that is somewhat interesting. Other than that, looking at the numbers, like there isn't too much of a shock. This kind of looks generally like,
I think KO being a little bit higher than Gecko is kind of interesting. And then one other thing that I've noticed that I think teams are not understanding very well right now is the role of the operator in the meta. Because I think
we aren't getting a ton of Jet.
Yeah, well, but we are getting quite a bit of Jet on like Icebox and Breeze and stuff like that. And I think that I'm seeing teams try to continually force the op on like Icebox specifically against like double smokes, double flash. And it's like, it's so hard.
It's tough.
It's very hard to get value. And I think, again, it's just kind of like the lack of adapting to what's happening. Like, well, surely if we just get the op this time, it'll work. But it's like, no, it's just, there's a Dizzy and a flash and like a bunch of smokes, and you just can't really get good angles.
Who was, there was someone played FBX on Lotus and bought an op, and I was like, what are you going to be looking like? They're playing triple smokes.
Yeah. Like,
why are you putting this up that you think you're finding value? And I just remember, who was it? I can't remember exactly who it was, but they played a game, and I just remember them thinking like, what are you? Oh, I think it was GenG. I think GenG picked up an op, and I think 3 players ended up having the op in a round because like someone picked up the op, they got smoked off. They had to, I think, Texture pushes a smoke, he dies.
Yeah.
because he's pushing through a smoke. So he dies. I think Autumn kills him. And then I think someone else I think then Lakia picks up the op, misses a shot, dies. And then Munchkin ends up picking up at the end of the round as well. Like, guys, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like 3 of you have tried it now. It's not going to work. Don't do it. Like,
Yeah.
there's 3 smokes here. It's not for you.
Yeah. And then just also the fact that we're playing this kind of like very aggressive pop flash execute style, like if you guess wrong with the op, not only is it hard to get value with the op because there's so many flashes and smokes, but now you're retaking if they hit the other site. And it's like, it just seems kind of like a bad meta for the op right now, actually, which is a weird random thought.
Yeah. I mean, I still do subscribe to op early and often. I still think, and I mean that on both sides as well. I think the attack op is something that is vastly underrated as an idea in general. I genuinely think people don't attack op because they fear, oh, we'll give them an op. Like I think that is like
That's how I feel in
way
ranked.
too much. In ranked, I understand because you're trusting someone in ranked, and you know those players aren't very good. But with pro players, like, hey, if they're gonna get an op, if they want an op that bad, they'll buy one anyway.
Yeah.
You know, like I wouldn't worry about it too much. But yeah, I think yeah, it's definitely an interesting consideration. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about what's actually gonna happen. Because this will happen, by the way. Whatever we're about to say is definitely going to come true. 100%. Now, I released a pick'em video earlier this very day.
Okay.
Don't
leave the stream right now.
So I can tell you.
Give us your watch time, but then go watch that.
I mean, I'll tell you because I made some of these picks, and then almost like, I mean, I always do this, but almost immediately after, I was like, I don't know. And there are some games that are like, you know, it could be coin flips. Let's just talk about them. In fact, I want your opinion on this as well because I just think this is interesting. Who would you have picked first?
What do you
mean? Order would you have picked the
f-
teams for the first seeds? Like, if you were the first seeds, what would have your order been? Do you think?
I mean, I definitely think it depends on the team matchup.
And then, if you were Paper
honestly.
X, who would you have picked first?
If I'm Paper X, I probably am picking Foot or Heretics.
Okay, so you think that they picked wrong?
I do.
I agree. I think G2 was the wrong pick.
I think Paper X wants a team that is willing to fight them because they will win if you brawl them.
They'll beat them in those fights. Yeah, I'm quite surprised they picked G2.
I think G2 are the best like tempo control team. That's just what I'm going to call them because I think they're very good at being disciplined and letting teams that are overly aggressive like play into them. And obviously, Paper X is not picking GenG because GenG's had their number all year. So,
well, let's just start there. No one's picking GenG. GenG, whoever came fourth was getting GenG because clearly GenG are better than these other 3 teams. Yes. Like that's just pretty clear to me. If I was Paper X, I would have definitely picked Foot. I think. You know, Team Heretics, you've already played them. You played them at Madrid, so you know maybe they've learned something from that game. You know, maybe they, you know, they have something there on you. You know, that it's a bit of a rematch. But like you say, G2 are a very disciplined team. I understand why Paper X might have wanted G2 because they just think like, hey, we can aim diff these guys. You know, like we will just diff them. Like, and I can understand that reasoning behind it. But I think Paper X, I think Foot would have had no idea what to do with Paper X.
I agree.
I don't think they would have had a chance because all those like hero clutch plays they're making like against Paper X, that's not going to happen as much. You know, you're not going to out aim Paper X consistently. In those moments, and I don't think they're disciplined enough, and I don't think that they have the structure to deal with Paper X whatsoever. So interesting that we disagree. Then 100 Thieves did pick Foot. Do you agree with that pick? Do you think that's a good pick? You like that? Like that for your boys, 100 Thieves?
Yeah, I think okay. So I think overall I would probably rate Foot as the weakest of the 4 teams in general. Just based on what I've seen at the tournament. I also want to caveat all of the predictions and stuff that we're going to talk about. I did my pick'em based off of this like map pool system that I made a tier list of just for fun, like purely based off of like I have like a numerical system and scoring system where I ranked like I averaged teams placement out of the 12 teams on the map, and then I gave them a score based on like their attack and attack side, defensive side win rates and stuff like that. And so far, using this system, I've gotten every prediction correct except for one in the entire tournament. So I just did it for fun for the bracket. I don't necessarily agree with the picks that the system gave me, but my pick'em is that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's on the front page of VLR. Here's the thing, though. I did think 100 Thieves might pick Heretics because watching Heretics play Bind.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably a free win anyway for 100 Thieves on Bind, but against Heretics, it is a free win. Heretics might have been lucky to get 3 rounds if they played. I mean, they might have been lucky to win like 2 or 3 if 100 Thieves played well and Heretics played as they played against G2 on Bind.
Yeah.
It would have been an absolute stomp. It would not have been close. We would be on 13-0 watch if those teams, played to like their last game on Bind. No joke. But then again, I don't think FUT are very good at Bind either, so it is what it is. And then EDG get Team Heretics, and again, we'll dive into these games a bit more. But okay, you're left with GenG Heretics. You're obviously going to pick Heretics, and then FNATIC end up with GenG. So let's go back to the start then. Paper X G2. Let's do a full breakdown of this game. Let's start with. I mean, let's start with this. I'm going to assume you're going to pick Paper X.
Nope.
Fuck off.
I picked G2. Again, using my system.
The system told you to pick G2.
G2 has a better map pool than Paper X does.
Interesting. Because when I was going through it earlier on as well, I did kind of see this in some of the numbers that I was looking at. Like, G2 were banning Sunset. That's one of Paper X's better maps.
It is their best map.
Oh, or their best map, yeah. And so then, like, Paper X are banning, I think, Breeze, and that's like, oh, whatever for G2, right? They're fine, they're okay on it, but nothing special. And so then, like, when I was looking at some of these maps, it was like, okay, well, G2 could pick Ascent. G2 could pick Icebox if they wanted to, although they got rolled on Icebox, so probably not. But Ascent, they could pick Ascent. Paper X aren't very good at Ascent, right? And then you're looking at some of these other maps, but I was just like, I still think Paper X are just a better team. And even on a map like Ascent, like, we can say, like, I understand, you're doing this map stuff and things, and I'm thinking, like, yeah, Paper X aren't good at Ascent. But then we've always said Paper X aren't very good at Ascent. But then they beat EG in the grand final of champs on Ascent. So, how, when Paper X are playing well, does it matter? Is kind of my point. Like,
yeah,
that was what I came back to. But go on, tell me the system. Go on.
Okay, so again, like,
it's the numbers, man. If G2 win this game, the system. I mean, you've got to be bringing this. You got to be selling. Make a book. You got to make a book called The System. Are going up.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if I was doing this without any numbers backing up, I would probably pick Paper X. Like, very, very likely would pick Paper X. I do think that, like, purely from like an eye test, again, no numbers involved, I do think stylistically G2 is one of the better matchups against Paper X in terms of like how they can handle their style. But I also definitely worry that the first time a team plays Paper X on LAN, it's just a different experience, and you just like it's very hard to handle. So I could totally see Paper X just steamrolling them because G2 like can't handle the pressure. They have
this
played
is also a God revenge game again.
I was gonna say that some of these players have played them in the past, so it's not the very first time they've ever played Paper X, but it is a different Paper X because they didn't have something at that point.
And the game has moved on by like 3 years.
So I mean, I obviously don't fault people for picking Paper X. I think it's probably the logical pick is to pick Paper X. Again, I'm just picking G2 because my map pool data says that G2 has a better map pool, and then on top of that, stylistically, I think G2 does match up relatively well against them. So I pick G2.
Well, that is a stunning way to start off the pick'ems.
I said we were going to disagree. I said we were going to disagree here.
Okay, then let's go on to the next one then. EDG versus Team Heretics. What does your all-knowing system say about this one?
Heretics wins.
Okay, I too have Heretics winning. If you weren't, a loyal subscriber to your own system, would your head and heart also say Heretics win?
It would definitely be closer.
Yeah.
I mean, part of me just really wants EDG to win because I want them to go deep in the tournament, and so it's really hard for me to take that bias out.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's so hard to
I,
get a read on EDG this year just because
yeah,
they haven't looked particularly good and we haven't really seen them play much on the international stage.
yeah,
I probably would still pick Heretics, but that's if I hadn't seen Woot and this team play yet, if this was like if we knew that this was the bracket before seeing Heretics play in the group stage, I would probably pick EDG, honestly. But
yeah.
now that we've seen what Woot is like and what this team is like with Woot, probably still going Heretics.
Yeah, I still think that Heretics in this one can get like I get like if EDG, I think EDG split is decent, and like that's one of the better statistical maps for
Mm-hmm.
EDG. Like if that should like if Woot is not on duelist, like that should be an easy win. Like again, just looking at what we saw from G2, I know Heretics like fumbled a lot of like 1vx's in that game and it was horrendous, but I still think that having Woot not be on duelist was a very weird choice. I don't really understand it whatsoever. Um, and yeah, I think that that's something that EDG could look to exploit in general. But I still went with Heretics literally just because of the point you just said, basically that EDG just haven't looked that good.
Yeah.
Like they won the grand final, and that's going to be clouding a lot of people's views. I think of like, oh, EDG are the 1 seed. They're better than FPX because they beat FPX, and FPX, hey, look, they look pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
They almost beat Team Heretics, so EDG can beat them surely. But in my power rankings, again, I can't remember what we did for ours, but I know in mine, I put FPX above EDG because, and I think we might have as well, because I would have just said like do that because the FPX I think have just been better than EDG the whole season. So that's really what I was just coming back to is I don't think Heretics have looked that good. I mean, that would give you an upper semi-final of one of G2 or Heretics is making your upper final.
I
That
mean,
is mental.
I do think
You're
also
gonna tell me that G2 are gonna win this tournament. I'm
no,
your system is wrong.
no, they're not. But I do also think that there is some world where like the showman in Kong Kong is empowered by playing in front
Yes,
of the Chinese fans, and
100%.
he's like
They go crazy.
he and this team in particular is like the one team that I can think of where like the pressure in the arena will actually turn into energy and they will just go
Yeah.
fucking crazy.
That is the loot. But this is another thing that I talked about in my video as well. That Heretics have experienced that, right?
Mm-hmm.
They experienced
True.
that in the FPX game. So maybe that's like a bad sign for EDG because maybe a G2 or a Foot, that's never been in a situation where a crowd is going absolutely mental as they're playing.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a situation that just gets the better of them, as it almost did to Team Heretics. But now that I think Team Heretics have been in that exact scenario, it might be dialed up even more for EDG, honestly.
Oh, it will
We'll
be.
have to see. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we'll have to see. But like, yeah, it's possible that that in those big moments, the EDG just go crazy, right? And the crowd's
Mhm.
going crazy, and it just gets on top of Heretics, and they don't know what to do. That definitely could happen. But yeah, we both pick Heretics. Okay. If your system has said that Foot are going to be 100 Thieves, I would be very, very, very surprised. But go on. Does it?
Foot will beat 100 Thieves.
Foot will beat 100 Thieves? Okay, now this is the thing. The G2 Paper X one, I actually understood. Because when I looked at it, I was like, huh. Like when G2 banned Sunset, they got a chance. You're going to have to explain to me how Foot are going to beat 100 Thieves. Because as far as I can tell, it's already 1-0 because Foot are going to ban Breeze and 100 Thieves are going to pick Bind. And so it's 1-0 already.
Okay, so
Do you disagree? Is it not 1-0?
I mean, so again, I'm doing this purely based off of the numbers, and
Yeah.
the numbers can definitely be wrong.
I love numbers.
The numbers can definitely be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
This the I will tell you at the end where I have Foot placed, and it makes me very much like I don't know if I trust this, but yeah. So I'm just pulling up my actual sheet. So if I go by the final rankings, 100 Thieves clears Foot on Bind. It's not even close.
Yes.
100 Thieves slightly ahead of Foot on Lotus. Foot
Okay.
clears 100 Thieves on Icebox. Foot clears 100 Thieves on Split. Foot slightly better than 100 Thieves on Sunset. Foot slightly, like 1 point below 100 Thieves on Breeze. and Foot slightly a little bit better than 100 Thieves on Ascent. So it's literally like a one map, tiny little difference. These two teams, I will say that with the final math, these two teams have the exact same average ranking over the course of the season, and as far as the maps go, their average placement out of the 12 teams is 5.7, 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7, 1, 4. Both of them have the exact same ranking, and then Foot just has a slightly higher map score, which means that they are doing better on their attack and defense sided splits than 100 Thieves is, and that's where the difference comes in.
Okay. I mean, here's the thing. If Foot ban Bind, I can believe it. Right? I can believe that, okay, Foot have a chance. My thing is, if Foot don't ban Bind, we both agree that it's basically 1-0 100 Thieves. And
Yes.
like, as you say then, like, a lot of the other maps are like, ooh, narrow Foot, right? But if you're already 1-0 up, like, you know, you only need to turn like a little narrow thing into a different, you know, into a different one, and then you're good. So, okay. I mean, that's interesting. And again, if Foot ban Bind, I can believe you. But Foot have banned Breeze both times. So if they stick with their Breeze ban, I think they're in a lot of trouble. But, look, some of these teams, and I say some, I mean like very few, but there are a couple teams that understand how map vetoes work. And hopefully Foot have a realization that, look,
And
just because you've been banning a map and then don't ban it, particularly if you've had a couple days prep, does not mean that your opponent will pick into it.
And then one last point outside of the system is that I don't think that 100 Thieves has played a team that has the same level of firepower across all 5 players that Foot does and is willing to roll in the mud with them. Because Foot will roll in the mud. They will get into these crazy scrappy situations. And as good as Lev are, they're not the same level of team play as Foot are. Foot will like swing you with 3 people. They'll bring the boys to the scrap. And Loud will brawl you, but Foot clears Loud as far as firepower goes. Obviously, you know, you got like less, maybe a bit above, and then that's it. Everybody else on Foot is probably a better aimer than everybody else on Loud. So
I think 1 to 5, like a pure 1 to 5, I think Foot would be top in the world.
Yeah,
like not necessarily
close.
Overall. I think like maybe GenG, Paper Rex would clear them overall. But if we're talking about like your weakest fragger, like Foot's 5th weakest fragger is better than everyone else's 5th weakest fragger.
Yeah, I think so.
Like they have the highest floor, I think, of everyone in the world. Because it's probably like Mr. Fallen, but Mr. Fallen is a correct IGL. Yeah. Like he is a very correct IGL. So yeah, I could look again. If they ban Bind, I can see it. If they don't ban Bind, I don't see it, and I don't know what they're gonna ban. So I picked 100 Thieves. And then finally, I mean, this one you wouldn't surprise me either way with what the system has predicted for this final one, because FNATIC GenG, I think most people would say is a coin flip. Right, that it's a pretty close one, but maybe your system thinks it's a very clearly one way or the other. Tell me.
Yeah, I mean, FNATIC has one of the worst map pools out of all the teams at the tournament, is really what it comes down to, and GenG has the best.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I was thinking like when I'm looking at my stats as well, like GenG's map pool is like every map is like 50% or above. Like they don't have a permaban as well, so they'll ban for their opponent, which is obviously an advantage as well. But then like every map, and they've played a lot of maps. They've played a massive amount of maps this year. Every map is at least decent. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not shocked that your system probably likes GenG.
I mean, to be fair, when we did our predictions for this, I wanted to put FNATIC as the potential winner. Like my eye test of the last couple of weeks of EMEA. And the way that I feel like, they can probably level up and they have all this experience, their players are insane. I was coming into this thinking that FNATIC are probably a favorite to win. So if I was making this again without numbers, I would probably put FNATIC maybe in the finals and probably would have them winning this. But you know, we're doing it the fun way this time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested. If the system gets all this right, holy, we've figured it out. We've figured it out. It's all about maps. I picked FNATIC. For those of you, I did pick FNATIC. I think this will be close. I think this will be 3 close maps.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, like full every map 13, 10 or closer, right? I think that it will be a very, very close game overall. I went with FNATIC purely because they've had this extra time. If both teams had come from Swiss and were playing, I'd pick GenG. But because FNATIC have had the extra time, I think that they can, perhaps dig in deep on GenG, who, as we said, have shown a lot of stuff, and if they can come up with a good plan for GenG on, a couple of these maps, cook them up a bit, I think that then FNATIC could win this game. So
Yeah,
I've gone
agreed.
FNATIC. How do we want to do this from this point? So we do have some disagreements for sure. You said who do we think will be the first two teams eliminated?
Yeah, I mean, I think doing the entire bracket is just too difficult. Like,
yeah, because we're doing two
who knows
separate
what's gonna
brackets.
happen?
So yeah. So we'll do. Let's just talk. Yeah, let's start with 7th, 8th, and then we'll go who we've got 5th, 6th, and then we'll do 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st. How about that?
Sure.
Okay, so I'll go first here for 7th, 8th. This is going to be different to yours because you've got both these teams winning their first game. But I had G2 and Foot. I've got G2 losing to EDG, which again is more of a heart over head situation. But I've got EDG being G2, and then I've got GenG being Foot because I think GenG are just better than Foot. So who have you got in 7th, 8th?
So I have EDG going out to Paper Rex.
Okay.
And then I have 100 Thieves beating FNATIC. The FNATIC goes out.
If your bracket's right and 100 Thieves have to play FNATIC in the first elimination game, oh my god. Oh my god, that's gonna be crazy. That will be crazy if that happens. Holy.
So again, I mean, I'll be sad if this bracket does come to pass because then we lose EDG in the first round and we lose FNATIC in the first round.
That would be crazy if FNATIC finish. So you got FNATIC finishing 3rd of all of the EMEA teams. That is
it's mental.
That's one way of doing it. Anyway.
Yeah.
But actually, I mean, but that's the thing. If 100 Thieves and FNATIC both lost their games, like that is a rough way to go. Like your playoff bracket is GenG 100 Thieves. Holy, that would be tough. Okay, 5th, 6th. This is where EDG take their bow out for me. Sad, but I think reasonable. And also, I've got Team Heretics, who in my bracket here play GenG. I've got GenG beating Team Heretics here and moving on. So yeah, Heretics and EDG are my 5, 6. Who's your 5, 6?
So I have Foot dropping down after losing to GenG in the upper bracket and then beating Paper Rex. Which, I mean, I can find a way to make that reality in my head. There is some way. And then I have 100 Thieves beating G2 as well. So G2 and Paper Rex would be my next two teams out.
So Paper Rex out in 5th, 6th.
Yep.
That would be a shock, but okay. Okay.
Yeah, we're dropping FNATIC, we're dropping EDG, and we're dropping Paper Rex. So the teams that got into the playoffs, they're not warmed up. They get stomped by the teams that have been playing for a while. We've seen it happen before.
We have seen it happen before. In my 4th spot, I've got FNATIC losing to GenG here in the lowers. So GenG carry on. In my bracket, they get revenge for losing the first game. GenG beat FNATIC. Who's your 4th place?
100 Thieves lose to Foot. Again.
100 Thieves lose to Foot. Again.
Yeah.
So you've got a repeat matchup.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Because it's just based off the map pool numbers.
Yeah,
it's like,
so the map pool numbers carry on.
Yeah.
Wow,
so,
okay.
There could be other, like maybe the anti-strats come in, but obviously the system doesn't.
The system doesn't care.
Account for that.
It says Foot above 100 Thieves. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then in 3rd place, I've got a lower final of Paper X GenG. I mean, you must have you've got a very different one. I've got Paper X GenG, and I've gone with GenG getting revenge for the Pacific final.
Okay.
And beat Paper X in the lower final. So my 3rd place is Paper Rex.
Okay. And
Yours?
my 3rd place is Team Heretics, who lose to Foot, who lost to GenG in the upper final.
So you got an upper final. So your final three are Foot, Team Heretics, and GenG.
Yes.
You're telling me that Heretics and GenG, are we watching the system, is the system watching the same teams that I've been watching these past couple of days?
It's not watching anything. It's just taking the numbers from the entire season.
Pure numbers.
Pure numbers. Cold, hard facts, TMV.
But, what did you do for your system, though, of Team Heretics? Can I just quickly ask? Because obviously they're playing with the sub. Like, was there any consideration put into that? Like, in your ranking? No?
So basically, I'm just looking at from kickoff until now. So all of the maps that have been played by the team up till now.
You're just giving them a score 1 to 12.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm giving them multiple scores. I'm giving them a score for their win rate on the map, and then I'm giving them a score for their attack side win rate and their defense side win rate. And obviously, this is like super just random experimental. It was just like a late night. I'm gonna see what happens if this works, and then just like I made some like random scoring system, and it could all just be complete bullshit. It probably is, but so far it's been working, so we're just going with it for the meme.
Yeah. I mean, it's bold. If your bracket ends up being even close to right.
Yeah.
Like, again, write that book. Write the book. You could make absolute bank off these.
I'm immediately putting myself out there as you can hire me. Any team wants to hire me, and
Elevated Al Gaib. Okay, so third place you've got Team Heretics. I do think that the sub thing might come back to bite you, because obviously that's not being taken into account in your number system.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's like an extra factor. And then so you have a final of GenG versus Foot.
Yes.
I've got a final
fucking unhinged. I admit that it's an unhinged final.
Well, I've got a final of GenG and 100 Thieves. I don't think GenG being in the final is unhinged whatsoever. I think most people would think that that's a fairly reasonable thing that could happen, right? I don't think anyone thinks that would be crazy. And I, again, maybe with heart in mind here, I've got GenG losing their first game to FNATIC and then going on a full lower bracket run.
Yep.
FPX style from Copenhagen, winning the grand final is what I've got. And Shanghai is a quiet library.
God. No one
is 18,000 people in that arena, whatever. There's not a single peep. There's just a light golf clap from everyone
that's what's
as GenG lift the trophy.
Oh my god. Okay, so hilariously, my system also has GenG winning.
Let's go.
So somehow we have both agreed that GenG will win the tournament.
Yes. You've got them beating Foot. I don't even like that. If that reality comes to pass, like I'm just trying to think, like all of the narratives around these teams would be so different. Like FNATIC go out straight away. Oh, Choke Natic are back. Like, whereas right now people I think are pretty hopeful for FNATIC that they might even win the thing. But stocks would go up massively. Like they would become like overnight.
It would be your take from like 2 months ago about how good Foot are.
Yeah, it would be like me. Everyone would become just me a couple months ago about Foot. EMEA in general would be looked at as some super region. That even with a sub, like a team is finishing second and third. I really hope that yours comes to pass.
I mean, I want to be clear. I do not believe in my bracket. I don't believe in my bracket, but that's why we're doing it with numbers, is because I had to take of my.
You are literally like, if you got everyone on VLR's pick'ems to show their bracket, there is definitely no one who has even close, I think, to your bracket.
I don't think so either.
Not even close.
I don't think so either.
Unbelievable. I mean, Shanghai would be like the best tournament ever if your bracket comes to pass. Yeah. Maybe not the gameplay wise, but just what the hell is going on wise. That would be insane.
Yeah. I mean, right now, my bracket is in the top 144 brackets. Yes. Or my pick'ems is in the top 144 pick'ems that have been
only
done
4 people are ahead of you.
Yes.
Only 4 people got it all right here in the pick'ems. And I don't think no one is in my group has got it all right. You are one of 4 people in my group who are on 45 points as well.
Yeah.
And you know the team though that you got wrong, the pred you got wrong was FPX versus Foot, I'm gonna guess.
It was. FPX versus Foot was the only thing that I've gotten wrong. And
of course it was, because
that was very close to being
Foot.
that was very close to being correct. Like, it was super, super close, but probably should have won that series.
You also got the 4 teams correct though to get out of
Yeah.
of the groups. I mean, that is impressive.
Yeah.
Like that is pretty crazy.
And you know what's funny,
I only
actually,
got 2 right.
Is I was listening to the Spike Talk podcast, which is Frost and Baby Bay. It's a new podcast that they just started. Yeah. And Frost said, I think this tournament is going to be determined by map pool. So that phrase made me do this. It was just a random thing that I heard, and I was like, that's really interesting. I wonder what the map pools look like. And so I just did all this random math in like 3 hours one night, and this is what's happened. I mean, again.
But the thing is, though, like, you can't even... Like, it was a switch. So, this is the thing, right? Like, getting the 4 teams to get to the playoffs is, like, impressive in a way, because, yeah, you can pick the first games and who you think is going to win. But, of course, it's a Swiss. So you don't know who's playing who. So it could have been impossible for, like, the teams to, you know, like, it could have been impossible if 2 of the teams that you picked, like, oh, unlucky, they got drawn against each other, you know, like, they can't go through. That's crazy. That's crazy that you got it all right. That is insane. And now, I mean, I really hope it's right. I mean, if we get your game, I mean, if G2 beat, oh no, it isn't the first game, is it? I don't know which one's the first game. But when G2 beat Paper Rex, you heard it here first. Well, if Foot versus 100 Thieves is the first game. So when Foot take out 100 Thieves, just know, Elevated knows. He knows.
I don't know anything, dude. I don't know anything. I'm so ready to just immediately have Paper X win, 100 Thieves win, and then I can just shut the fuck up and like.
But we both picked GenG. So what would your heart say? You kind of hinted that would it be FNATIC? Like if it was just you, no system, just your brain, who would you have winning?
If it was just my brain, I think I probably end up with a top 3 teams of. It's probably
again. I dare you.
No. It wouldn't be Foot. It would probably be like FNATIC, 100 Thieves, and GenG. Maybe taking out 100 Thieves for Team Heretics. I'm not that big of a Paper X believer right now.
Okay. When the world believes, they're gonna disappoint everyone.
Yeah.
But GenG winning would still be kind of a. God, that guy in my chat, General GenG, he'd be going crazy.
And then if my heart was doing the pick to see who would win, it would probably be like a coin flip between GenG and FNATIC, I think.
No love for EDG?
No. I mean, I would love to see EDG win this tournament. I think it would be so sick, but I just don't see it happening.
If EDG won this tournament, the crowd... I mean, I really hope EDG make it to the... Do they need to make top 4, I think? Yeah, I think they need to make top 4, right? To
make it to Mercedes-Benz?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, I really hope they make top 4.
Yeah.
Just to see, like, that many people going mental.
Yeah.
For a team. Like, I mean, I'm sure that, you know, like, obviously they will be supporting for teams anyway, right? Like, I think particularly FNATIC.
Yeah.
And whoever's playing GenG.
Yeah. I mean, they were cheering against GenG the whole group stage so far, and definitely FNATIC will have a lot of fans because Boaster's been doing like tons and tons of legwork as far as building that.
Yeah, so I'm sure that they still, you know, we still have a decent chance of seeing someone pop up. Oh God, if GenG won though in that arena, it's just quiet, a pin drop. That would be so sick. It would be so sick.
Is it
texture?
Yeah.
Can't hear anything. Just going like this to the crowd. Oh, it would be the best thing ever. There might be a riot, but it would be great.
Dude, just okay. The best thing that could possibly happen would be GenG versus EDG in the finals.
Oh my God. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? It would be unbelievable. I mean, it would be, you know, the loud FNATIC. I mean, that basically was that, but I don't know how many people were there at lock-in. It was, you know, maybe a couple thousand or something, maybe less. Yeah. Like it wasn't a ton. Like 18,000 people going crazy. Oh, that would be insane for a team that they like actively really don't like, and a team that, you know, that's their team. Oh.
Or 100 Thieves versus EDG as well, because Boostio.
Oh yeah, the Boostio. I'm interested to see how they react to 100 Thieves. Honestly,
yeah.
I'm really interested to see how they react. Again, people have this is something that, like, as a sports fan, is like a very weird concept to me. That like a lot of like people who I guess aren't into sports but like esports
Yeah.
keep complaining that the crowd is biased. Like,
Yeah.
this is like a completely alien concept to someone who comes from sports first.
Yeah.
And it blows my mind every time. Like, what do you mean? Like, things are so much more hype when, like, when you're really rooting for one team and you really want the other team to lose. Like, the lock-in crowd and FNATIC winning and silencing everyone at the end was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
mean, watch any like NBA game in the playoffs this season. It's like the away team, the team that's visiting the home court, hits like a 3-pointer that just like cuts the lead or like takes the lead, and the entire arena is just like, no, and then it's quiet, and it's like, that's so satisfying. It's so
Yeah,
good.
it's so satisfying. I mean, like, if I ever became a professional footballer, by that I mean soccer, for you, Elevate, soccer player.
Oh, I
Like,
got
the
it.
best thing that you could do is score when you're playing away.
Yeah.
In front of the home fans, scoring when you're away, going up to them and being like, oh, 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 like, you know, they're giving you a bunch of abuse and you're just like, ah. And like, that must be the best, most cathartic feeling in the world, of like, all these people have been giving you abuse all game. You score a goal against their team. Like, there's nothing better than that. And I'm sure that GenG, like, you know, they haven't really lent into it, you know, of like, we're the bad guys. We know we're the bad guys here. Like, you know, it is what it is. But if they did, it would be incredible. The only problem with that is that, you know, like, if Boostio does it right, it's kind of like on a bit of a bantery level. The problem with GenG is it's not
like
really
a political,
yeah, it's like a serious political level, so it's kind of a bit, you know, it's a bit more real, I guess.
Yeah.
But I hope that Boostio does. I hope that the Chinese crowd is like against 100 Thieves and Boostio really leans into it.
Oh, he's gonna be up, standing up, putting it.
Yeah,
like,
I really hope he leans into it. 'Cause that would be so good. Yeah, that would be so good.
Yeah.
I would love if that happened. Like, before his game against Foot, he should really just say like, "Oh, I wish we could have got EDG or FPX. I really wish FPX could have qualified because that would have been a free win." He really should. I really hope he says something like that, like just before the game starts, that everyone hears.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, TMV. Before we end the stream, I wanted to just go ahead and give a quick little 5 minutes in case anybody in chat has any questions for us to answer, because we said that we would do this a couple of times. We had some people asking about it earlier in the stream. So if anybody has any questions, go ahead and throw them in chat. I will be reading. I know TMV doesn't read his chat very often, but I will be reading the chat.
People always get on me for not reading chat. It's like, what do you want? Like, again, to me, the people in chats, Twitch chats, like, you're the weirdos, you know? Like, most normal people would just sit there and watch and just like happily watch. Like, it's one thing, like, you know, if I'm coming into your stream or you're coming into my stream, like, you know, we talk to each other, you know, like, you know, so it's more normal, you know, because we know each other to an extent. We don't know each other, but we know each other. We have talked. We talk here on this podcast, on this very podcast. We have met ech other, you know, but these weirdos that don't know me, thinking that I owe them something, thinking that I owe them some sort of answer.
Absolute weirdos. Okay, so here's a question. Elevated, how does your system have 100 Thieves better than Foot on Lotus when they've only played it once in kickoff? So Foot, coming to this tournament, have played Lotus, or 100 Thieves have played Lotus twice. They have a 50% win rate. They have a 61% win rate on attack side rounds and a 29% win rate on defensive side of rounds. Meanwhile, Foot have a 40% win rate on Lotus across 5 games with a 40% win rate on defense and 59% on attack. So, yes, I at no point have claimed that my system is goated and takes into account weighted how sample size. It's just for fun.
I'm just going to point out that I don't know if you've watched Foot play Lotus. I don't know if you know what comp they play.
It's not great.
Like, have you seen their comp? Have you seen their
watched
comp? What the fuck are
it.
you talking about? Their comp is fucking dog shit. Like, it's over. It's over. It's fucking over. Like, they keep trying this fucking Jet solo fucking. Now they've changed to a fucking Breach Initiator. They were playing no Initiator. It's fucking dog shit, man. It doesn't work.
I agree. Again, like, the
They don't play the
system
map
says one
right. They
thing
can't play
and
defense.
my brain says something else, but the system says something
The
else.
system is right on that one. Even though 100 Thieves tend to ban Lotus these days, like the system is right. I would take 100 Thieves over Foot on Lotus. If 100 Thieves ban Lotus, that is a blessing in disguise for Foot.
Yep. Okay, here's another question for
Give me
you.
another fucking question.
What team is the furthest ahead on any map compared to all the other teams, in your opinion?
Oh, 100 Thieves bind.
Yeah,
Has to
that's
be.
the obvious answer. Is there anyone
Has
else
to
that
be.
stands out?
If it wasn't 100 Thieves bind, oh, let me have a think. GenG's Lotus is quite good. Is one that came to mind. Paper X's Sunset is quite good.
Yep.
Team Heretics Sunset is quite good. Those would all be contenders. If Team Heretics weren't playing with the sub and had Miniboo on Neon, I would say Team Heretics Sunset would be my answer. Them with a sub, probably not. So I'd probably say, yeah, like Paper Rex on Sunset maybe, or GenG on Lotus. But 100
Yeah.
Thieves on Bind are the clear choice, I think. I think it's
Yep.
not. Like 100 Thieves on Bind is like EG. It's not quite EG fracture
pretty
levels,
close,
but
pretty
it's
close.
close. Yeah, it's close. And funnily enough, people will say, "Oh, but G2 beat G2 beat 100 Thieves on Bind, you know, in the playoffs, so it can't be that good." Well, funnily enough, Loud beat EG on Fracture just before the Masters Tokyo as well.
Mhm.
And then EG played Fracture like 5 times in that tournament and fucking rolled everyone.
Yep.
And like no map was close. And I
Yep.
do think that a similar thing might happen where teams that are, you know, a bit unfamiliar, don't have as much time to anti-strat maybe, you know, struggle against 100 Thieves, and 100 Thieves just roll everyone on that map. And if you are a smart team, because then in champs everyone banned Fracture against EG because everyone learned that lesson, you know, but I think learn the lesson from last year. Every team just ban Bind. Just because you ban Bind doesn't mean they're going to pick your permaban, especially for Foot, because you've got multiple days to prepare, so they might think that you've just got it prepared and you've played Breeze before. So don't ban Breeze, Foot, ban Bind.
Yep.
Please, your Bind's shit. I don't know how you beat Lev, because they're shit as well.
Because Lev is not good. Okay, we'll take a couple more questions. First one is, do you think Lev will make a roster change? And if so, what would you do?
Will they? I don't think so. I think it would be a bit foolish for them to do so after making Shanghai, right? Because by the time that they've got back, they'll probably want, you know, a couple of days off. Obviously, they're traveling back. It's a long travel. So you just wouldn't have a ton of time to, you know, all of your prep and all of your work, of course, will have been done to have, you know, you're going into Shanghai thinking we're going to be successful, right? You're not thinking, oh, we're going to bomb out. We need to start looking at people to scout. We need to scout other players.
Yep.
If they were like, if they had to, right? Like if someone, you know, retired or something, right? Like if they had to make a change, who would I bring in? I mean, you probably just bring. It's Noswa. No, I mean, Noswa's on Fury, isn't he?
Yeah.
I don't know. Sign Noswa back from Fury. Bring him back. I guess he knows some of the team. At least he knows what's going on with the org. For free agents, I don't know. I honestly don't know who you'd bring in. It would depend on who got replaced. You know, it would depend on who left. I guess.
Yeah, I think it would be a mistake.
I don't think they're going to. Off season though, probably I would. I mean, if they don't make champs, they definitely will. If they make champs and it goes badly, they still might. Only if they make champs and they do well, I think, does the team stick together.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. All right.
If they win champs, of course, then they're fucked as well because every champs winner has to disband.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. At that point, it's over. Okay. Last question. A two-parter. Okay. This is about
two parts.
Yeah, about Team Heretics. First of all, if Team Heretics had their full team, would they win this event? And the second part of it is, having seen Woot on Duelist, would you rather him play Duelist over Miniboo in the long term and have Miniboo flex?
My two answers to that are, would they win the event? I would still probably say no. But they would have a chance. They would probably be like third, fourth favorite, I would say. You know, in that kind of range if they had their full team. With Miniboo and Woot, who should play Duelist, No, they should stick Mini-Boo on Duelist. What this has opened up for them, though, I think,
Double
it's
Duelist.
is double Duelist is a possibility, right? Like, if
Yeah.
they want to run double Duelist on any map, personally, I don't think that Woot's Raise is amazing. I think his Jet was amazing on Icebox, and I think his Jet is good. I still think
Mini-Boo's
his
Jet
Raise
has not been great, actually.
yes,
So
but that's where you could
Yeah.
get some stuff going on, because Mini-Boo is more of a raised Neon player.
Yep.
So you definitely could do some stuff with that if you
And
wanted
Yoru,
to.
actually. So then you could have
Yeah.
Woot play
You
the
could have
Jet.
Yoru Jet. Yeah, you could have raised Jet. Like, so it definitely does open up some options for them. But I wouldn't change the system that you've got. Like, the system worked before anyway, right? And
Right.
Mini-Boo was a big part of that. Why it worked. You just now also have you just now have more flexibility, which is just good.
Yeah,
right?
I think
that you can do it.
I think if anything, it's kind of great for Heretics because it gives them this ability to be like, well, we can run double Duelist, we can run Woot on Duelist and Mini-Boo on KO because his KO is insane. We can run Woot on the more like recon initiators and Mini-Boo on the solo Duelist. We can basically run like any.
If anything, this might have like Icebox was a map before that they struggled on. This might have fixed their Icebox because they can just put Woot on Jet.
Yeah.
And like you say, put Mini-Boo on like KO.
Yeah.
And they'll be fine.
Yeah.
Right? Because like
100%.
Icebox was a map that they struggled on before, but like now they like have a clear answer of like, oh, this will work.
Yep. Okay. Last question. A little bit hard to do since we haven't seen 4 of the teams that are about to play, but who do you think will be the MVP of the tournament? If you had to just pick one.
I mean, I might as well just stick with my Pred, which is that GenG are going to win the event. And if GenG are going to go on a low bracket full run, then I'm going to guess the Texture is going to be a big part of that. So I'm just going to say Texture. He's already played really well. So if they win the event, I'm going Texture.
Fair enough. And yeah, I mean, I think that's a good shout. If I'm going by my system, I'm going by the system. I'm going to pick Yedijay because Foot will
that's such a great pick.
Foot will make the grand finals with
an
insane performance from Yedijay. But if I had to do like heart pick, it would probably be I mean, it might be like Leo or something like that. Yeah,
just play it safe. Go Leo.
Yeah. Okay, guys, be sure to check out the giveaway if you haven't already. Yaasa Play, thank you for sponsoring this episode of Cosmic Divide. It's been super fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And God, I'm so ready for the games. It's been nice to have one day of break.
Your Preds have made me more excited for these games.
Well, feel free to tweet me how bad my Preds are. Remember, it was the numbers. It wasn't me.
System.
It wasn't me. All right, guys, we'll see you later. Peace out. Have a good rest of your day.